Dr. David Clements was an advanced string theory physicist with advanced degrees from Oxford and Cambridge universities. During his teaching career, he worked with some of the leading researchers in free energy, such as Dr. Thomas Bearden and John Bedini. In the year 2000, he began to experiment with remote viewing and soon began to make contact with different groups of extraterrestrials and angelic or celestial beings, and he has since been producing a lot of new inventions which harness some of the celestial and galactic energies that are coming into the planet, and his inventions have helped a lot of people heal themselves from all sorts of illnesses. And he's here today to talk about some of the new energies coming into our solar system and his latest projects.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Well, welcome, David. Great to have you back.
Hello, Mike. It's great to be back. I've been looking forward to this.
Yes. Well, we got to spend a little bit of time together in Key West. You came up and visited me, so that was really nice to be able to just spend some time together and actually talk with the Arcturians or your teams that you actually were kind enough to do some channelings and some healing with me. That was awesome.
Yeah, it was great fun. I really enjoyed meeting you and Chad, all the conversations that we had. It's a pity it had to end and we had to leave.
Right, yeah. All good things must come to an end. Yeah. Well, so now I know that there's been a lot of interest in 3i Atlas, what it is, what its impact is, and what kind of changes are looming for humanity as a result of it coming in to our solar system. So, yeah, what have you learned? What can you share with the public?
Yeah, that's certainly got a lot of hubbub going, hasn't it? With across many communities, for sure. It's it's an interesting one because I first heard about it when, some of the images were coming back from NASA and suddenly all the data went clean and, nothing was coming through. And then, hearing a lot of information from different people. And I didn't take too much interest in it in the beginning because, we had Oumuamua that came through as well. And there are other objects that are there as well. And so somebody asked me, what's your take on, 3i Atlas and what's it all about? And I said, okay, well, let's check in with the teams and see what they say. And it was a very interesting response because their response was just to smile and said, would you allow yourself to see what's going to happen as things unfold? And that was it, which was a very cryptic answer, which is not, normally what they would say. Now, when you asked me, I know we had a phone call conversation and you asked me again, and I thought, let's check in again. And they did say that there are a number of other objects that are in the solar system, not just that one. And what my teams were, or mainly the Arcturians, but there are a number of other races that I have, connections with, was saying is that in what's actually happening, they showed me, if you imagine the entire solar system, they showed me these huge vessels, which were Arcturian and other races as well. And this is the information I said that I bring you. These vessels are enormous. When I asked to gauge, how big these vessels were, they said, well, they're roughly about 1/80th the size of the moon. So these are extraordinarily large vessels. They're massive. And what they showed me the image is that these are all setting up this huge environmental bubble around the solar system. They are literally, from what I could glean from because some of it was very lofty concepts, so I had to kind of sit and be very patient with decoding what they were giving me. But essentially what they were saying is that the environment within the solar system is being changed. It's like a sort of protected bubble is being formed. And they were essentially directing what they call non-material energetics towards the sun, and they were modulating the sun. And so when I asked what was happening with that, and I said, okay, are there particle streams? Are there material streams involved with these? They said, no, there are some components like that, but largely it's non-material. And what they're doing is they're getting the sun ready for a kind of an ignition of energy. Now, I know a lot of people have talked about the solar flash and all sorts of other things like that. But they were saying it wasn't quite that. It was something very different. They said they would be, they are expecting that the sun would give off certain CMEs, certain ejections that would come off and matter streams. But the actual ignition of it was a non-material energy that would literally just sort of expand and engulf and expand throughout the solar system. And all planets were going to be affected by this in a very positive way. And so it's literally changing the environmental energetics, not just within the solar system, but within planets as well, within the solar system and all objects that were inside. And I didn't ask this question directly, but I got a sense, and again, this is my speculation here, is that I got the sense that they were changing the condition of the solar system so that in order to be within the solar system, you had to be of a certain caliber of energy. So in other words, they were kind of making this a protected space, if you can imagine that. And they said that building of that bubble has already begun. And to correlate with that, they're saying there is a series of waves that are going to start really ramping up beginning of December, and they're going to go all the way through 2026. And these are going to be a series of waves that are going to go up and then jump up and then jump up. And they're going to be modulated in a way that they're going to, they have ways of reading how people are dealing, how societies are dealing with these energy changes and impacts. And so they modulate it to get the best results after each wave comes through. And in addition to that, something is happening, and we can talk about this a little bit later about the Inner Earth teams that I've been connecting with also. Because what they have gleaned to me is that something similar is happening within the core of the Earth. And I suspect, and they didn't say this directly, again, this is my suspicion, is that similar things are happening within the core of the planets within the solar system as well. And that is that there is something at the very core of the Earth, which is, when I got this chance to bilocate and have this experience with this very advanced Inner Earth civilization, which is very close to the core. Not, up in sort of like the outer mantle or anything like that. These were very deep. And what I could see was at the center was almost like a star at the center of the Earth. I don't know if that is in the same way that we know about our sun, but the light that was coming from the core was phenomenal. It was tremendous. And what they were saying is that expansive bubble, to coin a sort of physical interpretation of what's happening, is that it's expanding from the center of the Earth and it's approaching the surface of the Earth. And so at some point, there is going to be a tremendous change in energy within the inner levels of the Earth, but also on the surface of the Earth as well.
Well, before we kind of like dive deeper into that, I just wanted to first of all, just get an idea of this frequency bubble that 3i Atlas is causing in our solar system, because that's kind of huge news or huge development, that frequencies are being changed whereby those that have like a lower energy frequency, like polarity thinking, polarity behavior, I mean, what people might consider to be negative extraterrestrials,
Right.
that they can't stay in our solar system because of these energies that are being triggered by 3i Atlas, kind of like interacting with our sun and the planets.
Well, that's very interesting you mentioned that, because I was going to add to that when they gave me a sensation of what they were doing, the environment they were creating in the solar system was going to mean that those who have exactly what you just said, it would be incompatible with them to be here. So I think these massive, large scale, I mean, the scale of it is enormous. And so I think many things are playing a role, but in particular, when I asked about the Three Atlas thing, they immediately took my attention towards these massive vessels that were performing this modulation of the sun and the inner environment of the solar system. So I think it's all interrelated. And they did mention that there are other objects like that in the solar system as well. So they didn't give me too much information about, what it is, what its particular functions is, those kind of things. But they really were keen to get me to see what the large scale solar system transition, what was actually happening energetically and what they were doing. And it really does come down to the fact that I feel that they are taking the solar system from what you might consider a stellar nursery where lots of different things can happen and moving it up energetically so that this becomes a more advanced energetic system. And if you're not compatible energetically, you're going to find it extremely difficult, almost impossible to be here. So and I think what's happening, you can kind of see that in general goings on. People who cling to old ways, cling to old energies, old paradigms, old attitudes are finding it increasingly more difficult to continue about their day, because of all their stuff. That's probably another word for it, but all their stuff is coming to the surface. And I know I laugh about that. It's not a laughing matter for people who are going through it because it can be very difficult. But essentially, that's what's happening. And the energy environment, so the way I understand it, is all of our material makeup is sitting in a spatial fabric or structure, and that is what they're changing as well. It's the literal spatial fabric in which we sit is also undergoing this change. And so a whole slew of things, from the behavior of energy, the physics of energy, all those things are undergoing these transformations, and it's having a massive impact on everything. And I heard from so many people that know people who used to be pretty stable and pretty sort of chilled, and they're having great difficulties now because all of their stuff is coming, to the forefront. That in itself is a big subject, in of itself. But it is a huge, huge thing, and it does relate to these massive changes you mentioned about the galactic core. That also is playing a role because the way that they showed me is stars have these interconnectivities with certain systems in the galactic core to other sort of central suns and so on. It's almost like a fractalized stepping down of energetics through these different points or stars, cores, whatever you want to call them, so that the energy could emanate particular behaviors or particular sort of conscious codes in a particular region for life development in that particular region. And it's my understanding that us as a human species, we've been going through this experiment with free will for some time, and such a lot has been allowed because of that sort of experiment that's going on. But now that's about to change significantly, and it is becoming increasingly more difficult for anyone with negative orientations to maintain those. It's going to get much, much more difficult as time goes on. Definitely.
So with these energies that are coming in, 3i Atlas is just one among a number of vessels that have arrived that are kind of like doing the modulation, disseminating frequencies, helping change the frequencies of our solar system and the planet and the sun. Now, does that mean that as this kind of like bubble increases and that the frequencies rise within that bubble, that we're not going to have the kind of Earth splitting into 3 or 4 different timelines where those that are still trapped in 3D polarity thinking just get to go into another timeline or go to another solar system or something because they can't handle it here, and those that stay here are those that are kind of like comfortable with the 5D unified planetary consciousness, or do you kind of see it all just kind of like organically moving towards this unified planetary consciousness where everyone just kind of like raises their consciousness and they just like accept this new reality?
Yeah, that's to start with that question. It's the way, and I know that when we spoke over the phone recently, the teams came through on that very question, and the way they see it is the way the potentials are unfolding. We're on a very, very prominent timeline, and we weren't in their words, we were not expected to be this far ahead at this stage, 1, 2, 3 decades ago, because so much has changed. A lot of things, and it's mainly down to the fact that a lot of people around the world have done the inner work. They've released archetypal ideas, all sorts of energies, etc. They've managed to stabilize higher energetics that allow this cumulative effect, where the planet can now be aligned in this very amazing prominent timeline. Now, in terms of these multiple Earth aspects, that from my understanding with what the teams have said is that what's happening is that there is tremendous support and help available to people, because they've said they can see a lot of people have been struggling. But the message that they wanted to give, and I got this message from them before we went live, that was that this transition can actually be incredibly simple. It doesn't have to be hard work. And they're saying the difficulty is, and they're here with me now, they're saying that most of humanity spends a great deal of time focusing on things outside of them, when in fact the ascension process is an internal ignition, and it's very much inside of you. Now, as the ignition starts ramping up, it's going to push out everything that's not compatible with that level of energy, which is old stuff. And it's not just this life, it's also things from previous lifetimes, even archetypal things from other planetary experiences that you may have had in different civilizations. And so this whole thing is being cleaned out. But because of, human nature, we're so used to grip and holding things down that we actually push back or buck the what should be quite an effortless flow forward of this stuff just moving out. And it's just kind of human nature. It's how many people have learned to deal with things. So the way I see it is there's quite a significant, because I know there have been a lot of predictions in the past about a relatively small percentage of the human race that was going to be able to make this jump. Now, from what the team said when we had that call, and what they're saying is now quite a significant large group is going to be able to make this. But they're saying even more can jump on this bandwagon if they just, they're saying if people would just relax and just literally go with their own flow and be less sort of mentally orientated about it. They're saying it's one of the big key hang-ups for humanity is thinking too much about things and trying to, sort of dissect things too much, because they're saying this is an experiential ride. This is a wave that will just literally ignite and move you up, and you'll suddenly be aware of things inside you that your mind was not able to probe because it doesn't work on those levels. It's a beautiful instrument, but it can get in the way if it gets too overbearing on what's happening. And so that's one of the things, and they always, whatever they come through, they always, when you think of the Arcturians and the colossal things they have done, that the ships they have, the technologies they have are just immense. They always say, and I'll say it again, I'm sure I've said it on your show before, that when I was trying to work on a particular device and I was really trying to nitpick and go through all the mental gymnastics of how this thing was, working, it all just went blank. And I said, whoa, hang on, where's the signal? Where's the help gone? And I was getting quite frustrated. And they said, no, just settle down. You said, we were trying to show you there is a world of difference. And this is the exact words they use. There is a world of difference between living in your heart intelligence and coming from your mind intelligence. And they're saying that is one of the transformations, the very profound transformations that humanity is going through. We're being restored back to have a powerful mind, but it will be an extension of heart intelligence. And that's one of the offerings that they had. And these, like I said, these are the Arcturians who are intellectually very advanced, spiritually very advanced. They're advanced in all ways. And so that was their information, which I thought at the time was, wow, that's quite profound. I didn't expect that from, the Arcturians, but that's what they said. So back to your other question about timelines, I think the splitting was more prominent back in the day when, certain energetics hadn't been created, they hadn't settled like they have now. So I believe this is my interpretation, and I feel it's reflected in what my teams have said, is a lot of the what would have been a great deal of splitting, just a small group managing to do this, and a lot of other problems going on, is no longer really in play. That has sort of given way to something far more expansive, far more, I hesitate to use the word greater, it sounds a bit bold, but in a way that's the only word to use, because of the work that people have done and the extra assistance that has been enabled to come in because of the work that people have done. It's like a symbiosis. The more that people work on themselves, the more they center themselves and become more heart-centered, the more assistance can be given, because you're now matching more of the energy of these higher races, and they can therefore give better assistance. That's one of the things that, for me, in my experience, I've learned definitely happens.
So for people who are not comfortable with that kind of energy, and here we're talking about the cabal, the deep state, those that follow them. Because they practice the opposite of what we do. We try to get in touch with our kind of infinite heart intelligence and connect with that, whereas they shut down the heart. They do all these rituals to shut down the heart, and they're all with the kind of like mind intelligence. So will these beings just kind of like contrive some planetary emergency and just leave with as many of the population that are kind of foolish enough to join them and just kind of go somewhere else?
Yes, we discussed this when we met up, and that certainly is something which me as a human being, but also having conversations with my teams, is that they came through and they said, when you asked that question over the phone, beware of false prophets, and it's a very, very key thing, because in my experience, and I'll come back to your question in a second, but I think this preamble gives a bit of context. In my experience, the advanced beings never offer to save the how could we say, the selected few or the chosen or any of that silliness. It just doesn't happen that way. When you, with these beings, the level of connectivity with the heart intelligence they have, they seek to uplift all life. They're not just looking for, oh yeah, you've been a fanboy of us, you're great. We'll take you with us, that kind of thing. That's not really how it works in my experience. That's literally the source intelligence within another being seeks to enrich and expand all life, not just one particular group. People talk about the source intelligence or the creator, whatever you want to call it, has a hand for anyone who wishes to take the path inwardly towards that energy. And it does, and I believe that's just in the inherent nature of source intelligence itself, and those beings who are closer to it, they behave like that. And there's no such thing, in my experience, I never got any sense of being special or, oh, you're an anointed one or you're a this or that. None of that. It was never anything like that. They seek to really reach out and connect with people who are willing to do the same, and do it with a sort of joyful, sort of open heart to doing so, and they will happily work, with people like that. And so coming back to your question before about, what's going to happen, is I'm not entirely sure. Certainly the environment in this solar system is going to be incompatible. I think it's going to be extremely hard, impossible even, for beings of such a negative nature to be able to operate here, because like I said before, the literal space, the fabric, my impression of what they showed me was that the spatial fabric itself is actually changing, and it's not going to support energy behavior or energies in alignment with those kind of extreme polarities anymore. It really is, it really is changing. So my feeling is that there's going to be this ignition, and it's going to be and it's increasing slowly, and in a way I feel to give people time to say, hey, look, this is going to continue to increase. Do you really want that stuff that's coming up now and causing you all sorts of problems? You can let it go and you can be free of it, because that's the purpose of this. Purpose is to uplift you, not to cause you chaos or all sorts of problems and everything like that. But the trouble is, because we have, over many lifetimes, pushed all of the energies we didn't want to face in ourselves down into this bucket we call the unconscious, or, perhaps the subconscious as well. It all has to be raised up so that we can see it, so that we can make the choice to release it. Free will is maintained on all those levels. And so that is essentially what is taking place. And so when things come up, I would encourage anybody to, daily practice, connect with your higher self, work with your higher self is ready to get in there and help you. But it does respect your free will. So if you want to ignore it and just carry on, you can, and it will just, like a field, it will just stand back and observe you, but it will be ready to help the second that you ask for that. And that's one thing I see a lot of people in the spiritual community doing a kind of lack of, and that's one of the messages that the teams and the inner earth beings wish to convey, is they in their polite way and very smiley way, they'd say they would encourage people to spend more time connecting inward and getting to know that source higher self within them. And all of this stuff, and I can say from my own experience very, very succinctly that having tried it the old way of rooting, digging stuff out, ferreting, and having a very difficult life, to switching over to, going within, connecting with the higher self, and getting this colossal assistance from my higher self, my life has gotten so much easier in so many ways, and it's sped up. My access to energy, my perceptibility, all those things have just really amplified massively since doing that, and they will. So that's definitely a big message they wanted to, and in their words, they would say, this is just a recommendation. It's up to you. So that's, I hope that answered your question.
It did. So on the one hand, we're having all of this energy coming in from the galactic core, coming into our solar system, and you've got 3i Atlas and other ships, huge ships coming in and kind of disseminating these frequencies. And at the same time, you got the energies from the core of the earth, similar sorts of energies that are doing the same thing, but from the inner earth. And so in a way, it's almost like a pincer movement.
Oh, yes.
In terms of positive energies. And that means that even these negative entities, I mean, presumably there have been some very dark entities in the inner earth hiding in these cities or these cavern systems or whatever, where they abduct humans and, eat them and that sort of thing. I mean, are they also going to be kind of like driven off the planet?
My sense of what the teams were saying is there is nowhere spatially to go where this will not be affected. There aren't any places, because you have to understand that source intelligence is I remember one day my higher self came in and gave me this wonderful phrase. Source intelligence is the master physicist. It's the master chemist. It's the master biologist. It knows the ins and outs of every spatial grid system that ever existed and ever will. It knows how to reach into everything. And what seems to be happening is literally this light, this source intelligence is reaching into the very fundamentals of everything. And there is nowhere to hide. There literally is nowhere to hide. And that's the image that the team showed me. The balance, the difficult point of this, instead of, I guess they could just do this all in one go and go, bang, there you go, there it goes on. But the trouble is that would be too difficult for humanity to handle. So they're having to do this in a modulated way. And again, this is my interpretation here from what they've shown me. They have to do it in a modulated way to allow as many people to settle and acclimate as this process is going on. It's like going from a country with little light, up near the North Pole, getting little sun, and suddenly goes, hey, let's go for a holiday, like on the equator somewhere for a year, and get a full blast of sun. You have to acclimate. You can't just jump in like that. It's the body has to change. So there's a lot of things that are having to change. And I believe that at each stage, they're watching and seeing humanity And from what the Inner Earth people have told me, they have this ability to literally walk around remotely and watch people and see how they're doing. They can measure their energies. They can see what their difficulties are. They can literally just monitor people all the time. And they've told me that they are doing that and have been doing that for a long time. And so their pathway forward, as I understand it, is trying to reach the optimum trajectory, the optimum path, to have the most prominent, most expansive, love intelligence timeline with as many people joining that as possible. So they're always finding the sweet spot of that as things flow forward. So that's what I believe that's what is happening, while at the same time having to deal with and take care of the troublemakers, so to speak, that might be trying to do other things. But in the nutshell is that these beings, the source intelligence behind them is beyond anything that these other races think they might be able to handle. Like I said, the very fundamentals of physics itself are held in place by source intelligence. It can change that whenever it wishes to. There's no greater physicist, biologist, chemist, whatever you want to call it, than the source intelligence. And those beings that align with it get greater access to that deep, profound knowledge and accessibility as well, which is why I believe races like the Arcturians, the Pleiadians have access to, great and powerful, wonderful technologies and conscious technologies, not artificial or synthetic technologies or dead technologies, as I call them. These are living, energetic technologies, very, very different. You can't, if you're in a deep polarity state or a negative state, you don't get access to that kind of technology. You have to use, very complicated dead technology and assemble it in such a way which does a certain amount of things, but it's got a cap. There's a boundary that you can't go beyond with that. But in order to go beyond that boundary, and it reminds me of the beautiful design of how these universes are put together. It's almost expected that, beings are going to stumble, fall, make mistakes, do things. So how do you create these stellar nurseries in such a way that makes it not necessarily impossible, but very difficult for races that might mean you harm to get there and do it, So I think that's a big part of the picture. And, some races have skirted that, as we know, But my point really is that there are much more advanced races that have way, way more powerful stuff that keep that at bay to a certain extent, but they can't override free will. That's the problem. That's the interplay. How are they allowed here? Why are humans doing this? Well, certain groups of humans chose to use their free will to let them do it and invite them in. So, there's a whole backstory to that as well. It kind of gets a little bit colorful and complicated, but ultimately that's the thing, that this is all being held in hand by vast intelligence, which is biased as love intelligence for the expansion and the greater development of life. It has the qualities of kindness, compassion, those kind of things. People look at them as if they're airy-fairy qualities. No, they're not. I see them as intrinsic, very fundamental properties of source intelligence. And, how could life be anything but with that, really? We've had this experiment of free will where you could have the option of choosing an illusion of not having that, and we know where that leads. It doesn't lead anywhere but just awful places. But fundamentally, source intelligence is that, and this is where it's all being taken to, in my view.
So one of the things that kind of comes to mind with these frequencies that are coming in and changing the conditions, not just on Earth, but in our entire solar system, is the idea of us entering into a new age. I mean, you had the Greeks, you had the Hindus talking about, the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, and so forth, and like a descent that we were on a downward path, and we've now just we've just kind of bottomed out, and we're now starting to come up. And people have talked about the Aquarian Age, the age of electricity, and so forth. So, does this mean these energies that are now sweeping in, that we're kind of like starting to go up into, we're on the trajectory to, say, a new golden age, but we have to go through a number of steps beforehand?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, just to call an answer from what my teams have showed me is that these changes in the literal fabric of space within the solar system and the very nature of energy and how it behaves on planets, on the Earth, within the core of the planet, and so forth. We're moving into what I would consider, I mean, that the name Golden Age has been used a lot in many different contexts. But what I feel is that we're moving into this age of living energetics, where matter itself, rather than just appearing as dead material things that you can flick and it moves, or you bump into the wall and it hurts you, matter itself. And one of the images they showed me once is that as this process unfolds, and I don't have a timeline for this, I don't know when this is going to happen, is that matter itself is going to start to luminesce. And this reminds me a lot of what I saw when I bilocated down to some of the inner Earth civilizations that I've been to. The environments in there, they luminesce. The grass luminesces. The rocks luminesce. It was a very different environment. And the feeling I got, I mean, I didn't have too much time to ask too many questions, but my perception of what I saw down there was that they live in a very... it's a symbiosis, but it's the state they have. So they have no discernible, nothing that I could see of conventional technologies, electronics, mechanics, all those kind of things that we're used to. None of that. They used very advanced living energetic crystalline technologies, and I got the chance as well to go into what looked like an enclave or an offshoot to this massive cavern that they were in. And there were about, I can't remember the exact number, but there was some females and males there, and they were sitting around what looked like a luminescent crystal form in a cave, like an offshoot. And, like I say, when I bilocate, I feel like I'm in a sphere and I can move around. I don't feel myself like I'm in a, walking alongside them, but they were there and they knew I was there. And one of them picked up a shard, what I perceived to be, I'm not sure if it was quartz crystal, but it looked like one of those quartz crystal shards that you have. Held it and then closed his eyes and did something, and the entire thing luminesced like it was just suddenly glowing light. And he didn't fully explain what he did, but he smiled as if to say, this is how easy it is to activate crystals. There are very advanced things to do with crystals, which humanity is going to learn, but doesn't understand yet, about the living field energetic of crystalline forms that these very advanced beings use. And so, this is something which we're going to be exposed to gradually. I don't know what sort of time frame that will be. My feeling is it's very much akin to how people develop. The faster people go inwardly and connect with their higher self, the more they can synergize with the beings that are wishing to come forward and meet, and therefore give them information that they're looking for. But yeah, did that answer your question? Or have I tangented a little bit there?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So I want to ask something else, or actually kind of share something that I shared with you around the same time as you were beginning the communications with the inner Earth beings, that I had a vivid dream, and even it's so vivid that I went into some location, and there were a group of people, normal people there in this location, and then all of a sudden there were 12 giants that came out. And they were about 15 foot tall, and they just radiated a very peaceful, loving energy, and it was almost like a darshan where the people that were the normal humans were assembling there to kind of like almost like pay their respects to these giants. They didn't talk; they just came out, they stood, and they just kind of like they just raised the energies there. And they really were sublime. And then the latter part of that dream, I saw that this location was right next to this very big red crystalline city,
right?
Structure, like a monastery. And and I told you that, and you thought that had significance in terms of what you were experiencing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had a few different experiences with different races, in Earth races. And the first one began when we're in New Zealand, or at least consciously for me. I'm not aware of anything happening before that. And it was when I was very first learning to do this sort of bilocation technique. And it was a male and a female that greeted me, and they were trying to. And it's funny, I always got that perception with them that there was always two that would come. Sometimes there would be others that would observe, but usually there were two that would come and meet. One that would do the talking and communication, and it's like the other was protecting the space and making sure everything was kept, on the up and up kind of thing, and okay. And it's very interesting because as I had that first experience, I remember it was like inside a massive cavern. It felt like it was on the top of a ridge or a hill, and there are rock formations. And I got to see in the distance that they didn't take me there, but I could see crystalline cathedral-like city parts. Now, it's interesting. I don't like to use the word city because when people think of cities, they think of these yucky places with yucky energy and so forth. But these dwellings, or whatever you want to call them, these cathedral-like structures, were all crystalline. And they had this, like this aqua blue kind of nature to them for this particular civilization, but they were kind of almost fully see-through. They had a blueness to them, but you could see quite past the walls of these structures. Now, the other thing to them was that I got the impression that these crystalline forms that they had were emitting living energetics, and there was a symbiotic exchange between those inner civilizations and those dwellings, those structures they had created. So they weren't just a place to hang out or just, whatever. There was deep energy purpose in the way they had built them, in the energies that they emit, and living with them like that. And so I believe that, to me, is an exciting future that humanity is going to get introduced to. Instead of having blocky buildings that just keep the rain off your head, we have the possibility of building dwellings that actually work with you symbiotically, energetically, and are literally a living intelligence within themselves. A little bit like these advanced races with their ships, and the ships being living intelligences as well. And so I had a number of these different experiences, and the one I described where I went into the enclave or the cave outside of the main cavern was another one. And very interesting experiences. And I had a number of these, and some of them I got the perception that one of them was around they didn't give me exact locations, but I got the feeling one of them was around South America. One was in a region of Russia, near Siberia. The other one, I couldn't fathom where that one was. I think that was a little bit deeper. But these ones were kind of, I got the impression about sort of the 300-mile mark down, something about that depth, perhaps a little bit deeper. I could be wrong on those figures, but that was my perception. But recently, my high self connected me with another group of beings which are very, very deep. They're very close to the Earth core. And when you mentioned the dream to me, what you had, these were the beings, because the other beings that I met were kind of pretty much human size. They had perhaps a little bit taller than us, not much, but they had a very, very elegant look. They had just a very smooth, sort of unblemished skin. They were very, very gentle, very kind, very patient. And these other beings that I went down to appeared to be quite large, and, it matched very, very similar to the description that you gave. So the figure that I met, first of all, was a male figure, and he was very focused, very gentle and kind, but very, to the point, very, very clear and concise. And then after he finished talking, then a female came in. And I got the feeling she gave me the idea that they were, what's the word I'm looking for? Not really guardians as such. They were like, they were there to kind of look after, if you like, the energetics around this emanating core. so to speak. And they said to me that they are reaching out to people on the surface population because they are looking to form relationships, because humanity is moving into this paradigm where we are going to have these kind of experiences, living energy technologies. We're going to have these contacts with these amazing races. And again, very loving, very kind, very sweet-natured, but very knowledgeable. You got the feeling like these were kind of, in a joking kind of way, just encyclopedias, of knowledge, that they had. And it was incredible because I saw structures that they had down there that looked very similar, not the same coloration, but again, when you sent me what you sent me, it immediately pinged back what I was seeing down in these very deep civilizations. And they were the ones that also helped me to understand that the Earth is getting ready to ignite, and this inner core is going to expand outwards, and this bubble of immense energy is starting to come outwards from the core towards the surface of the Earth. So it's I don't know if you want to have any. There's a lot there that I just unravel, but
yeah. I was muted. Sorry. Yes. Yes, that city that was very close to the Earth's core or the inner sun. I mean, it sounded very similar to what Radu Cinema described in his book series, Transylvania's Sunrise, that, you have these inner cities, a network of inner cities all over the planet. But as you go deeper and deeper, the density gets higher and higher. Yes. And right next to the inner sun, he described a city, a crystalline city, Shambhala. And he said that is the most evolved of all the inner Earth cities, and it's the one that all of the other inner Earth cities defer to. They know about it. We on the surface, we don't know about that. What you described seemed to be exactly what Radu Cinema described about Shambhala.
Well, that's interesting. I haven't heard of him or his work. I mean, I try to keep, not in being disrespectful to other people, but I try to keep myself not looking too much afield, because that way my information is not, how could we say, you're not just, picking up on what you've already heard from somebody else. It has to be a direct experience. But that's not, the inner sun there was quite, the energy that was coming from this was something else. It really was. And what they told me was that this particular race of beings, they used to be surface dwellers about 400,000 years ago. And they started to make, some of them, they said, left. They had the technology that some of them decided to go explore and go elsewhere. And some of them decided to go down into the Earth. And they described this historical evolution, how we perceive linear time, that they found that the closer you get to the core, the more evolved you have to be. You can't get close enough like that and have a, let's say less than good intentions, so to speak, because you won't survive there. The energies are too high. You just go crazy and fall to pieces, basically. So a number of them, as they described, decided to stay where they were and just continue in their evolution where they were, and then a part of that went deeper, and then a part of that went deeper. So they have aspects of their civilization which are at different levels. But this particular group, they have, they're very, very close to the core. And like I said, I got the feeling that they are, again, it's really hard to find the word, not overseers, but they were kind of, custodians is the wrong word as well, because it sounds like an ownership. It's not like that. It's like somebody who they're protecting a space and holding a space to advance this expansion. That's probably a better way of saying it, I think. So, but they are deeply, have this wonderful, loving admiration for the intelligence that comes from that core of the Earth. And they very much live in symbiosis with this core, the intelligence that comes from this central star, whatever you want to call it. They're just very, very beautiful people, definitely.
So I've come across 3 different sources describing pretty much the same process, and this is like the galactic consequences of what's happening here on Earth and in our solar system. And basically what it was that the Draco reptilians that have been like the imperial extraterrestrial organization that has kind of like established empires and invaded worlds and caused all sorts of problems, that, you know, they are connected, or they are watching what's happening on Earth, and that this has created a movement within the Draconians where there are many who are looking at our changes, and it is affecting them. And many Draconians are choosing the path of enlightenment and activating their heart, and they are wanting to join humanity in this, you know, great expansion of consciousness, and that this is something that is impacting their society tremendously. So it seems that what's happening on Earth and in our solar system has these kind of wider galactic implications. So, I mean, what are your thoughts? What are the thoughts of the Arcturians? Is this real? Is this genuine? Or is this some kind of deception?
Yeah, I can feel that the team's here now. That's the Arcturians. So, okay, so my teams, my high self, if you'd like to go ahead with an answer to that. So just to explain to those people who are watching, so this is kind of, it's not a direct channeling, so a being is not sort of speaking through me. They connect with my high self and speak to my high self, and I then translate what they're giving me in return, so people understand what's happening here. So my teams, my Arcturian teams, would you like to go ahead, and my high self as well? So they're saying that, okay, could you slow down a little bit? That's a little too fast. Okay, thank you. So they're saying there are many races that previously had, they're smiling, they're saying very particular agendas that, you know, were looking to make use of humanity in certain ways, that they are having a second look. So this is very true. And it's not just the beings that you described. There are other races out there as well. Many of them are coming to the conclusions. They're saying that this game of domination, empire building, etc., it's just a dead end. You know, how many times can you do it before, you know, it becomes, you know, okay, well, this is just the same old stuff all over again, essentially. But they're also realizing there is a ceiling for them. They can only go so far with their evolution, you see. Those people who are more technologically orientated, there's only so far you can go. It's like, if you consider all the matter in a particular area, like a galaxy or a universe, there's only so many permutations, so many orientations of that you get, that you reach every single possible combination you could possibly have. Now, with the creator energy, with the source intelligence energy, you get to create brand new realms. You get to create something that has never been done before. Whereas if you block that off and you just exist in a material sense, and you just play this game of push-pull, domination, victimhood, blah, 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 everything, that's essentially confining yourself to a realm of experience that goes no further. You know, and for some people that provides amusement for so many lifetimes, and then they realize, actually, this is kind of a bit of a dead end, really, isn't it? You know, but to step out of that and to step into true creatorship, where you can literally create new paradigms, new realms, new experiences, that's the creator energy that does that. You can't take existing matter as it is there, do funny things with it, manipulate it, build things. It can be fun for a while, but after a while you think, yeah, okay, I've shuffled this deck many times, and I'm now coming back to the beginning again, essentially. So that's the impression they're giving to me. They're saying it goes a little deeper than that. They're saying a lot of them have realized the error in shutting off their connection with source intelligence. They're saying that they thought that they could be independent. They thought they could do their own little sort of, you know, make their own sort of worlds or enclaves or whatever you call it. But they're finding there really isn't anything there. You know, it's not what they thought it would be. They're saying there are certain aspects of those groups which are continuing because they're so deeply ingrained in this. You know, They're just, it's a little bit like somebody who has such a deep opinion about something, they will not change regardless of what you show them, And there are, in a human way, they're saying, in a human way to understand that there is that going on as well. But the other aspect of it is a lot of them, they're saying, are just getting tired of the states that they are in because of the games they're playing. At the end of the day, it might be fun to run around doing, cloak and dagger stuff, but after a while, you realize it gets pretty empty and you're just in fear all the time. You don't get to experience anything, really great. So a lot of them are waking up, and just the very energies coming in is actually giving them a second look, because suddenly they're getting a feeling or a sensation of this creator energy, and they're beginning to understand that's something that they've been missing. Now, the thing about creator energy is, because it is innately benevolent, it is innately compassionate, and it always seeks to uplift everything together because it's a unifying field. It imbues whatever lets it in with that intelligence, so it starts to warm to that behavior, that intelligence, that it's better to be kind, it's better to be compassionate. It actually evolves you as well as the beings that you're being compassionate and kind to. It is a symbiosis. It's a win-win. It's not a take, run, and hope they don't catch you constantly kind of scenario. It's very different. So my Arcturian teams, is that pretty close to what you were sharing there? They say more or less. Yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell what they were suggesting.
And this leads to another question, which is somewhere down the track, whether we're talking several years, that those non-human species that have adapted and incorporated these energies and are kind of like now much more heart-based and understand or connecting with infinite source intelligence, will they be openly interacting with us? And will we, as humans, kind of like really have to open up our societies, our world, our civilizations, so these other entities can choose to live amongst us, and we have to learn not to express any kind of negative energy to, say, an 8-foot tall Draco reptilian walking down the main street with his buddies.
Yeah, it's so my Arcturian family, would you like to speak on anything of that nature? They're smiling. They're saying what they would love for humanity to understand, and again, they're sort of making a motion like this is just a recommendation, is that they say, we know many of you have been waiting for the chance to meet advanced races. Now they're saying, now this is going to happen, but the quicker way to bring that forward is to learn to, they're saying, synergize with your heart center so you can be more compatible with where they are. They're saying the difficulty will arise. They're giving an example. They're saying, just imagine somebody with quite a lot of low energetics who's very excited about the prospect of meeting an advanced civilization, suddenly gets in the presence of a very advanced being whose energy field is very strong, and it emits that very high energy. It's going to rocket up all that low energy that cannot exist in that energy. It's literally getting pulled out very quickly. And so they're saying this is part of the issue with some of the delay, they're saying, in the contact that people have been looking for. And they're saying part of the issue as they see it is humanity's wish to constantly have contact but not look inside and release what is holding them up from being more synergistic with the energy of the beings they want to meet. So in other words, what they're saying is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, my teams, is that they're saying that process of contact, they're really excited to do it, and it's almost like they're encouraging with ways in which to speed that up and get that closer. They're saying, do not wait for contact to happen. Put yourself in an energetic state where you are more compatible with contact with these beings. And the more people that do that, they're saying, the faster contact will happen. And they're saying it has nothing to do with your organizations, governments, whatever you call it. They're saying it's got nothing to do with that. It's actually to do with human beings as the energy that they hold. And, it's a little bit like, and I've had experience of this, when they've always told me that bilocation is the only way I can go meet them right now because their energy is very high. And I have asked to go physically, but they said, you're not ready just yet. There have been times when I have had stuff going on and stuff was coming out, and I thought, I'd love to just, go up and say hi kind of thing. So I asked my higher self, and my higher self would smile. I said, okay. And I'd go up, and then I'd go, oh my goodness, what's going on? And you'd feel the stuff that was already there really come out. And then one of the beings would come to me and say, you really need to go back right now. You're really not in the state to be here. It's really pulling it out too fast for you. Just go back, chill, let this stuff come out. And when you settle, come back again. So I really understand and have experienced that through this bilocation, that their energy is very high. Now, they do have other aspects of their civilization that operate in sort of different energy realms. But in a same token, it's a similar thing. Being near such high energy beings like that, you really have to learn how to stabilize and hold your energy, and literally do the work to let go of all the stuff that needs to come out. Because it's like, how could I say? It's like have you ever experienced where, you're in a very beautiful state, you may have just meditated, and you go outside and you meet someone who's quite a low energy, suddenly they start to get really aggressive and their temperature changes, and they don't like being near you, and they don't know why. It's just something has kicked them off because of being near you, because of that. They're saying it's a very similar way that, they're waiting for humanity to reach a certain threshold, a certain level. And once a certain group of people, there'll be, my feeling is there'll be, contact initiation with certain groups of people, and then it will start taking place. I mean, that's my interpretation. I don't know if that's, or the Arcturians are saying, yes, that's more or less on the right lines. But it ultimately is, and I can't sort of overstate this and what they've said to me many times, it's all as simply about, can you get yourself in the energy state where you can meet these beings? Because if you can't, they're not necessarily going to approach you, not because they don't want to connect with you, it's because if they did get near to you, all your stuff is going to rocket up very quick, and depending on how high that being is. Mm-hmm. So that's why I've when I bilocate, even when I'm in a really good state, and I'm feeling really great and energy very high, I can only be there for a certain length of time before they say, right, now you need to return. And then when I get back, whole bunch of stuff will come up, and then I have to deal with it, let it go, let it cleanse, and then stabilize, because it's all part of the learning process. You get to meet them a little bit, you come back, deal with your stuff, you go again, you meet them again, you're a little bit better this time, you can stay a bit longer, you come back, same thing happens. So that was a message they wanted me to share on this broadcast before because they are really looking to connect with humanity, but they really need humanity to reach up in a symbiotic way by changing and being able to master your energy state, be it learning to daily practice connecting with your heart intelligence, your higher self, however you wish to do it. I think that's a really big message they have really been wanting to give people.
So is this where these non-human species like the Sasquatch kind of like come in, that they are very important? Because in a way, I mean, they're already doing that. They're already interacting with people that have done the inner work or are ready for contact, and people go to places where Sasquatch have been seen and camp and spend time there and try and communicate with them. So the Sasquatch, I mean, they seem to me to be a species that might be an important bridge to us interacting with non-human species in the way you've described.
Yeah. So did you want to ask that as a question to the...
Sure, please. Okay. Yes.
So my Arcturian family, do you have anything to say about that? Yes, they do. Okay. So they're saying there are actually many species on the planet, many of which, including dolphins and other species, which are holding particular energetics for the Earth right now. Now, they're saying that it is true that some of these beings, for example, within the Sasquatch community, let's call it, I don't know what else to call it, have slightly succumbed to, because you see, they're in an environment where there can be great pockets of negativity and things like that. And some of them have had difficulty. If I'm understanding you correctly, yeah, they're saying, yes, that's pretty much correct. And so some of them can behave aggressively, because it's like, if you've, again, and I'm just going to pause that for a second, because if you've ever been, if you've meditated, you've gotten yourself very calm and serene, and then suddenly you go into a workplace where everybody's, all over the place, energies are quite low. It doesn't take too long before you start, feeling the succumbing effects to, some of the energy, unless you can hold your energy very high. And in a similar way, they're saying, this has been part of the process with some of these beings as well, because they've lived here for a while, they have energetic purpose in being here, but the energies can be very low in certain places and around certain groups. And so this has been the result. And I've had a personal experience myself as well. We were not too far away from where we used to live in Florida. We were walking in a park, a big sort of preserve, and heard these two communications coming from one end of the park to the other. It's a massive forest, this place. And the language was really complex, a lot of sort of popping and very deep guttural sounds, and just, I can't even reproduce it. And they call them skunk apes here in Florida, not Sasquatch. Apparently Florida is second or third highest in sightings for these beings, as far as when I did a bit of research on it, which surprised me. Anyway, well, after we left, I spoke to the ranger we'd become quite friendly with, and I said, look, I don't know how you stand with these things, but this is kind of what we heard. Do you know what that is? He said, oh, those are skunk apes. And I said, skunk ape. He said, oh, Yeti or Sasquatch, you might know them like that. I said, real? And he said, yeah, they do pass through here every now and again, and they're aware of them. So we didn't have any contact with them, but we could hear the communication, didn't feel threatened or anything like that. They were just going about their business. But yeah, it's so sorry, my Arcturian friends, I interrupted you there. Is there anything else you wanted to add to that question? So they're saying, lastly, they are evolving alongside us as well. They're saying every species that is on this planet is not separate from this energy evolution that's going on. Everything that stays here is going to be moved through these energy progressions. And so the same is going to happen with them. So it might be an interesting question, if you're interested, to ask, are they going to come forward and introduce themselves in a more public manner? So my Arcturian family, would you care to speak about that? They're saying, as they see it, not right now. They're saying that certain elements within them have made themselves known to the public, and I've heard of people speaking about their encounters. But they have this timidness or trepidation about humanity as a whole right now because of everything that's going on. But they're saying they can't give a definite answer as to when they will wish to come forward, but at some point in the future they're going to want to, because all life on this earth is going to be known to each other in one way or another. That's just part of the energy environment we're moving into. There aren't going to be unknowns anymore. It's going to be a very symbiotic environment that we're going to be living in.
Now, you mentioned the dolphins a little while ago. I wanted to find out about the whales in particular. I mean, like, their whale song apparently is known for kind of like harmonizing or modulating the planetary grid. So I imagine that they are probably playing a role in what's going on. And that gets me to the question, well, I mean, how do we communicate with them? How do we communicate with the whales? Because I know apparently the US Navy has established ways of communicating with dolphins, but they have kept that classified.
Right.
But with the whales, I mean, that would be incredible if we as a species start communicating with them.
Yeah, so my Arcturian family, would you care to comment on that? Yeah, they're smiling. They're saying, in a certain state, there is no language barrier. And so they're saying, once you learn to sufficiently connect within your heart intelligence, you have communication to all living forms. And ideas can exchange and pass between you. They're saying the difficulty is if you want to communicate on a sonic or a sound level, learning actual structural language of the sounds they make. They're saying that's one way to communicate with them for sure, but you can do it in an energetic way that is very different. And it's interesting, when I've communicated with different races, the language that comes through, there is no language barrier. It's a very clear communication of ideas, sensations, intentions, those kind of things. And it's almost like, it's like you go beyond the necessity to learn a language in order to have a more sort of grounded conversation. You can actually talk with the more core intelligence of that being on that level. But they're saying that if you did want to have communication with them on a more physical level in that way, if you ever got the chance to be near them, you can ask permission to lay your hands if you're swimming beside them, next to them, and you can ask your higher self to initiate contact, and you will feel an energy flow between you. And then they're saying the rest is up to you. So,
okay, all right. Well, I wanted to ask you about something we covered in our last interview. In that interview, I remember you shared a little bit about you being on a spacecraft and them showing you some med beds, and
Right.
and you saw this really evolved med bed, and that they can choose to use them, but they ultimately learn to use consciousness to self-heal. But we're still in the process.
Right.
Well, since that time, President Trump, he put out this kind of like on his Truth Social, he put out
I saw that.
this
Yes.
message
Yeah.
about med beds, and so a lot of people are now very excited by the idea that the secret government or the military are going to start releasing med beds soon. So is that a good thing? What are the pitfalls for these kinds of advanced technologies being released to the public?
Yeah, that's a very good question, a very broad question as well. I would say, okay, so my Arcturian team, do you have anything you'd like to share on this? Well, they're asking me to speak first. So, okay. So in my take of it, before, I'm guessing they want me to say something before they do, but is that it's an interesting thing because I've had a number of different experiences with different races where I have been placed in a cocoon, different types. Some of it was to experience very advanced sort of what you might call spiritual, energetic healing. So not necessarily physical, but it was very much to do with, taking away deeply held belief systems that no longer serve, taking away deeply traumatic energies that no longer serve, and feeling profound changes afterwards. And I feel that there is a sort of companion step-by-step a sort of an appropriateness to this, whereby it is possible for people to step up, but learn to be more in their core. And if they need to, use this to heal, to take to a next step, and then come back into their core. But I feel that, the Arcturians would like to come in now. So, okay, my Arcturian family, please go ahead. So they're saying one of the balance points they're saying that they are looking to do with humanity is that it's been seen for a long time that humanity tends to be very much looking outside of itself, and that's just part of the nature of human experience of how we've been. They're saying what they're trying to encourage humanity to learn is, yes, the technology does exist most certainly to do all the things that they're looking for it to do and are longing for it to do. But what they're hoping not to do is for people to suddenly invest themselves in these technological things, thinking, oh, that's all I need now. I just need a med bed. I'm on my way. Don't need anything else. That's good to go. But they're saying that is not so. They're saying that part of the environmental energy that we're moving into is actually asking us to move into the source energetic within our core. And they're saying that's your own private med bed. Because essentially they're saying, although they say that jestfully, They're saying it's very true. The source intelligence knows how to organize every piece of matter, every, subatomic, atomic, whatever, molecular, whatever you want to call it, in exactly the right way and make it work the right way. Because again, source intelligence is the master physicist, it's the master chemist, the master biologist. It knows how to do this. You have it inside you already. So as they see it, they see such technologies as can be a helpful stepping stone. But if you learn to go within and open that source well inside you, that source intelligence center, infuse yourself with it and get used to acclimating to that level of infusion into your body of source intelligence, miracles are going to happen, and there are many examples of that back in ancient texts where, ancient masters could hold up a dead twig, literally infuse it with source intelligence, and then suddenly leaves would grow off it, and all sorts of apparent miracles would happen. But it's not really a miracle. It's just the nature of living intelligence. Living intelligent energies will organize them for life bias ways, and they know exactly how to do it. It's not that they need an encyclopedia of how to, what to, where to. It already knows how to do it. And so that to me is an amazing thing, because within each of us is, if we're willing to go in and open that door to source intelligence, every possible energy healing, every possible answer, every possible wisdom, all the adventures we could possibly wish for and more are there waiting. And I feel that's really the ultimate message that the teams always give me. That is as simple as it is. It's not complicated. So I guess in a nutshell, yeah, it seems that it could be a helpful stepping stone, but I do believe they're just erring caution with people. Don't get dependent on these technologies, because if you're dependent on them, what happens if they go missing or they get taken away? Then what do you do? But if you learn to open access to source intelligence, nothing can take that away. That is yours. And that is anything you can tap into whenever you wish to. I think that's a very, very important point.
Yeah, well, that's very significant what you just shared there. Getting in touch with that source intelligence within us, and I guess you to open that door, you need to do a lot of inner work, clearing a lot of your own stuff. And I know I've had stuff that I'm working on, and it's like, well, and I guess a lot of people are dealing with similar challenges, and
yes.
and this is something that. I've come across this again and again in the issue of forgiveness, forgiving people who you feel have betrayed you or taken advantage of you. That people often think of forgiveness as something. Well, why would you do that? If they did this and that to you, then they have to apologize, right? But really, forgiveness is more about clearing the emotional charge we carry from those incidents, those events that may have happened many lifetimes ago. So and are being mirrored now by the people we come into contact with. And do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, definitely. You know what I might do? I'm just going to turn this light on because the green screen is having oh, there we go. Let me just get rid of all that noise in the background. That's I can see that fluttering away.
Right.
That's a very, very important point. And I believe throughout my journey, as much as I sometimes I've strayed off mentally and gone down different paths, my higher self, my teams keep bringing me back to that simple truth again. Now, the image they just showed me when you describe what you're describing is, imagine yourself, you have your hand on the door and you're trying to open it, but it's kind of like doing that a bit. And then you look down and you realize you've got your foot on the bottom part of the door, and essentially they're saying, okay, so the Arcturians are coming in again now, and some other beings as well. They're saying there is nothing holding up humanity but humanity themselves. And that is, they say that not as a means to point any fingers. That's not what they mean at all. They're saying the simplicity of the essence of what you just said is in literally what they call forgiveness is an act of letting go. When you're not in a state of forgiveness, what you're actually doing is you're in a state of inner grip. when you're gripping like that, for whatever reason, whoever it's to, could be to yourself or somebody else, you are holding old energies in place and you are refusing to let them go. So forgiveness isn't saying that, whoever did X, Y, Z, did something inappropriate. It's that you're not holding yourself in that state continuously and therefore refusing to more open up into that core that's trying to open up inside you. And I know for a lot of people, myself included, one of the big difficulties I've had is that ability to let go. And that they have, in their loving way, almost harped on about it so much to me. It's like, all you have to do is let go. All you have to do is let go. And one of the tricks with humanity, and from my own experience as well, is that because of the experience of humanity, particularly to do with betrayal and being let down, there is a what they call a fortress of old energy that surrounds that heart field in the core. Now, that's made of many different things: shame, guilt, betrayal, a whole list of things like that. And it's become what the teams have described before as like this castle with a moat with crocodiles going around it, that we have inside us, and we stick in the middle of the castle thinking, right, no one's going to get me here, And so what they're saying is that they want to say something more. Okay, carry on, please. So they're saying it really is very simple. They're saying that there isn't actually too much work to be done. They're saying here is a simple formula to work with. They're saying whenever you feel uncomfortable, like odd sensations of, just energy or tightness or contraction or all that kind of stuff, they're saying that is your resistance to letting go. So when something comes up and wants to move, like an old paradigm that we really want to hold in place because we think it protects us, that we think it's part of our needed protective thing, that is when we resist, when we don't know, and we're holding on to it. We check it in place and we keep it there, and we devote enormous amounts of energy to keeping it there. They're saying if you could just learn to go into it and relax and let it go, it will leave because it wants to leave. That's why it's come up. It's on its way out. And they're saying that in times past, it has been necessary to do a lot of work to go in, understand concepts, cancel this, clear this, do all that stuff. But they're saying now that's not necessary anymore. The energies have changed to such a degree that things can leave very fast. Now, they're saying what they would recommend people do, and again, just a recommendation, they always smile when they say that, is just take some time, even if it's just 5 minutes a day, just to sit down, connect with your higher self, ask your higher self to put a field of your higher self energy around you and within you so you can feel that. And they're saying, here's another nugget. While you're there, learn to give it up to your higher self. They're saying far too many people think they have to trudge through things and they've got to do it by themselves. They've got to work through all the nooks and crannies. And they're saying you don't. There is a vast amount of support, but it will not override your free will. You have to say, okay, my higher self, don't know what's going on. I offer this up to you. Can you take care of it? And it will go. That's what I find. I used to do the trudging side of things, go in the trenches and get in there and have at it. And it was tiring. It was really, really bogging down. It took a long time. It was really outstretched. And my higher self said, I can help you. All you have to do is ask. I said, all right then, because I'd reached my end, the tether on this particular issue. And I said, all right, take it up. I'm done with it. And it went. And within minutes, my energy completely changed and everything had realigned. I thought, wow, that was quick. I said, yeah, that's how quick it can be. There is a difficulty with humanity because humanity doesn't practice enough time connecting with a higher self. It doesn't have the familiarity of how powerful and what an ally the higher self is and is waiting to be, should you choose to let it be so. And they're saying it's a similar thing with the ET contact situation, that they're saying a lot of people want the ET contact. They want ETs to come, but they're saying you literally have the same being in you to the being you're looking to connect in another vessel, So it's right there. If you can learn to connect with this, then you can connect properly with a being who has that in their body as well. It's a symbiosis. And so, in a nutshell, that is always. They've had to remind me a lot of times that this is not something I just got and thought, because human nature is human nature. We do sometimes flip back to old ways. But having worked with this a lot now, my goodness, it has made a massive difference. Things that used to bother me for years just gone. And it really is just that your higher self is you. It is literally your greatest ally, your most powerful ally, because it's the source extension of yourself that is waiting to be there with you. But you have to ask for it, because free will is in play and it will not overstep that.
And is there a special way or a recommended way where you can get in touch with the higher self or open that door to the higher self? I mean, is it just as simple as like saying, higher self, I want you to reveal yourself, or do you envisage a light? Do you envisage like a perfect form of yourself?
Yeah, that's a good question. The way that that when I do the meditation activations that the teams bring through and Source Intelligence brings through, they take people through. First, it's rhythmic breathing. So the rhythmic breathing is the sweet spot. It's unique to everybody. It's a different pace. It's a different depth for everybody. And it's the breathing rhythm that gives you the most relaxation and the most joy in doing it. It's not labored. It's not hard. It's not, if you're breathing too deep or you're really forcing it, that's not the sweet spot, and it's unique to everybody. And sometimes you have to play with it a bit, because they're saying there is a field effect that happens in the ebb and flow of the breathing, and it's centered around the heart. They're saying there's no coincidence the design of the body has the lungs surrounding the heart, as, this inflation and contraction system happens. And so they get people to rhythmically breathe. And then once you find the sweet spot, you can invite in, say, your higher self, whether it's just if you just want to connect with the fifth dimensional bandwidth of your higher self or further, it's up to you. You ask it to infuse you with the living intelligence of your higher self on the in-breath. So your in-breath literally infuses your cellular structure as you breathe in, and it's almost like a pump. You literally invite it in, and it, like a sponge, it starts to soak up the living and intelligence of your higher self. And you get to a point where you feel like you're becoming saturated, like it really is part of you, and you can just sit and enjoy that, continue rhythmic breathing. And at that point, now you have a very deep symbiosis with your higher self. Now it has great access to you. Now you can get really into offering up some of the deep rubbish that's coming out, and your higher self can take it off you super fast. Because if you don't practice synergizing with your higher self has a rather limited access energetically to you. So by doing that infusion process, you are building and expanding that bridge to your higher self so it can get deeper, broader access to you, and it can work on you in ways when you're just walking down the street and you don't even know it. So that relationship to the higher self, I could not overemphasize, for me, in my view, just how important that is. I mean, that to me, that is the key. That is the be all and end all of everything that comes after it, really. So that is a very simple way that I would encourage anybody to try and have fun with it. Do not get serious. One of the things they always say to me, you get serious, you start contracting, and then you lose the energy can't infuse in you properly. Just be playful. Be lighthearted about it, because the word lighthearted, has very good, the wording is very appropriate, and you'll see what happens if you keep doing that. And I've done that for about maybe a year and a bit now, and the differences are phenomenal. It really is. I definitely encourage people to do that if they want to.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you and your team for answering the questions. I mean, that was very helpful, and that guidance. So do you want to say a little bit about your websites and your Patreon channel, that I know people can get in touch with you or even do events with you?
Yeah, sure. So we have a few websites. The Patreon one, which is Infinite Source Creations, is a platform where the Infinite Source Intelligence and the teams, the supporting teams, which are often Arcturian and Palladian, will come through and give activations that help you get and build that bridge in towards your source intelligence inside yourself. That's really the essence of what that platform is about. It's sequential building and expanding of the bridge within. And it's all about self-empowerment, because that's a big thing for me. I thoroughly believe in people being sovereign, self-empowered, and connected inwardly. So that's what that is about. The other website is icinfinity.com, where we've created devices. That's the website for the Patreon. Yeah, that's kind of, they're kind of one and the same in a way. So this series of devices which emit living energetics from the core of the pyramidal form to do various different things. And the idea is to help humanity bridge into living in an environment where those living energetics are there, and to harmonize certain coded energy or codes that exist in energies which are degenerative in their nature towards you. So it's designed to go in there and sort of, how could you say, transform those degenerative codes into purely generative. And so it's very supportive in that way. So you can check those websites out and see all the information, but we do have, unfortunately, a very big wait list. After the last talk that we did with you, I think it all exploded. So we're still working through that, and there is a waiting list you can put your name down on, and we're looking for ways to make these, because they are very intricate instruments to make. There's a very particular process involved in doing them, but we are getting there slowly. But if you are interested, you can put your name on the waiting list.
Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you again for coming on to Exopolitics today, David. Much appreciated.
Definitely. I enjoy every time, and I thoroughly enjoyed meeting you guys when I came down. And yeah, I look forward to meeting you soon in the future as well.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
You have been listening to Exopolitics today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.